This is the New York City FC pregame live. Tonight, New York City FC takes on Santos in the second leg of the Concacaf Champions League round of 16. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. How are you? It's a big night for New York City FC as they try to advance into the quarterfinals of the Concacaf Champions League. This is just their first ever appearance, second ever appearance in the CCL. So ahead, I've got my New York City FC broadcast partner, Matty Lawrence. He'll be joining me in a moment. Then Chris Tsakonas, he'll be on to give some of that opposition analysis and help preview tonight's match. And then our CONCACAF guru, Jon Arnold, you may read him. He writes the newsletter, Getting CONCACAF'd. And we're going to cover a little bit more beyond New York City and Santos with John. New York City, they're up 2-0 on this aggregate. Tati Castellanos on February the 15th had a brace, a penalty in the 5th minute, and then a nice little finish on the rebound a half hour into the match. The only negative really for New York City, Santi Rodriguez, he sustained a red card with a little over 20 minutes left of that match. City, though, was able to maintain and not concede. So all well with New York City FC as they enter this second leg. And here he is, the guy. He's in Manhattan. I'm in Central Jersey. And we're ready for a match in California. New York City, 2,000. I calculated it. They are 2,145 miles away for this home match tonight, Matty. So how are you today?
I'm good, and you'll have to excuse any cries. They won't be my cries. My son is just to my right-hand side, so he's joining us. He won't actually be on air. He's probably slightly more lucid and eloquent than me, even at 4 months old, but you'll have to deal with him.
I look at it as there's a couple of crybabies on here. Hey, listen, I'm in a great mood. What a beautiful day in our part of the country today, in the mid-60s. Matt, I got to tell you, I bought a bike a couple of days ago,
yep.
And I went out today, and it was great to be out and riding around, and had a couple of fun interviews today. I talked to Alejandro Pozuelo and Jonathan Osorio, two guys I really respect, Toronto FC players. You and I both work for SiriusXM FC. We're doing these MLS season previews, so I got a chance to talk to them. Shalry Joseph, a legend who's now an assistant coach under Bruce Arena in New England. He's on my show tonight, which comes up after all these games. So, so I'm in pretty good spirits here. Looking forward to this one. So if we go back to the we're going to bring out Chris Tsakonas in just a moment. But if you look back last week, 60% possession for New York City, shots 15-11 in their favor, on target 6-1 in their favor, winning a majority of the duels. It was a pretty comprehensive, you might say, easy win, don't you think?
Yeah, it was an easy win. There's no two ways about it. We know that Santos were underhanded. We know that they didn't have a couple of their best players playing, but I think even with their best lineup, NYCFC, I know even with Santos's best lineup, NYCFC are much a better side. I know the problem may be the fact that it's the beginning of the season. They haven't even started the MLS season. That, of course, is a minor problem. But with such a short off season, because NYCFC got all the way to MLS Cup, was it December the 10th, December the 11th, whatever it may have been, they are still pretty fit. They'll have started pre-season a little bit earlier, but professional footballers nowadays and professional sportsmen nowadays, they are 24/7, 365 days of the week. They may possibly have taken a little holiday with the family, but even then you can bet your life they'd have been on a treadmill. There's no way that any actual physical fitness will have waned one iota. The match fitness, of course, you can't replicate that. So that has waned a little bit, but I don't think it matters too much against the side of the quality of Santos. And yes, that's being disparaging, but it's a fact of life. They're not as good a side as NYCFC. That's factual. It's knowledgeable. We know that.
In the starting 11 last week, and he's going to be replaced by Morales tonight, Alfredo Morales too many Alejandros on my mind. But Alfredo Morales will start in the midfield. He missed last week due to COVID, which he had contracted while the team was training in Mexico. But someone asked about Zelalem after the game last week. Ronnie likes him. And you talk about fitness. I mean, here's a guy that's been injured so much throughout his career. And here's Ronnie Deila after the match.
I believed in Gideon all the time. He's been here already in 2 years, but he's been injured all the time. The reason we have a captain is because we know when he's injury-free, he has a quality that few other players have in this league. Technically very, very gifted. He's good awareness, good understanding of the game. So he still need to work on his defense play, and I think that's improving as well also. So I have a lot of expectation for Gideon in the future. This is the second game in a row now, third game he's been involved in, has a full preseason. So it's been out for so many years. It will take some time, but he's on the right. He's on the right path to get back to the level he'd been before.
And I think, Matty, this is part of where Ronnie Deila excels, because I don't know how many people would have faith in Gideon Zelalem after everything he's been through, and then the few amount of times he could participate as a member of New York City FC. And now he is contributing. And we saw him in the tail end of 2021 get a couple of chances and contribute in a positive way, which, we've, certainly been critical of what he might be able to bring.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you've seen the starting lineup tonight, Glenn, but we may have to reassess what we're just about to say for Gideon Zelalem. But yes, I thoroughly agree that very few managers would have the faith in Zelalem that Ronnie Deila has shown. I certainly know that in his time at SKC, I think Peter Vermees pretty much wore thin of Zelalem's inability to stay fit, inability to break into the side. I really like what I see of Zelalem, but that's when he's fit, Glenn. And if that's only 10, 20, 30% of the season, that makes it very, very difficult to have a great deal of faith. Look, he's a wonderfully gifted athlete, a wonderfully gifted footballer. Arsene Wenger said of him as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, he's one of the best young talents in Europe. But that's when he's 16, 17, 18. That's then when his injuries started coming to the fore. And I don't like saying anybody's injury prone, because nobody means to get injured. People work very hard on prehab and preventing injuries. So he's just been very unfortunate throughout his career.
And what you're talking about is that what you were referring to is that he's not in the 18. So I guess we assume there may be an issue.
Yes, and we can't comment on that because we don't know. So I'd hate to say he's injured if maybe he's ill, whether that's COVID related or non-COVID related. So
sure.
I'm not casting any aspersions, but we know he's not in the 18. So already,
neither is just so you know, neither is Thiago Martins. So we're wondering about him because the Brazilian central defender, who's a designated player now, he made his debut last week. I got some time, and so I have sent in a note to try to find out what's going on with these guys, but haven't heard back quite yet. So, Matty, let's take the next step here in the pregame live stream. Well, first of all, I want to say I would imagine you're in a fine mood. I was mostly watching Champions League today. Liverpool, though, thrashed Leeds 6-0. 6. That was at Anfield, but still, I mean, gee whiz. 6-0,
and it could have been 10, and it could have been 12. Leeds are in dire straits, and that's not good for anybody affiliated with NYCFC. We know, even I, not being a Leeds fan at all, I still watch out for Leeds because of Jack Harrison, and he started, but Leeds have been on the slide since the back end of last season, and it's going to be a big struggle for Leeds to stay in the division this season, especially with Burnley winning a game. Spurs are that team. Spurs can beat Manchester City at the Etihad, and they can get themselves up for big games, but they lose to Burnley. It just shows you the mentality and the morale of the dressing room at Tottenham. That's 4 games out of the last 5 they've lost. But the one game they did win was against Man City.
I know they with their previous game. And in Champions, so the Champions League of another sort, the UEFA, there were 2 late goals. Man United, Elanga he's a pretty good guy off the bench for United. He Anthony Elanga scored in the 80th minute. Manchester United survived and got the 1-1 draw in the first leg of that match, and then Benfica scored late and 2-2 against Ajax Amsterdam.
Yeah, look, the away goals don't count double. We know that in the Champions League this year, but still, it's massive for Manchester United to go away to the Wanda Metropolitano and get that result. They were listening. I switched over to get the last 10 minutes, so I saw Elanga's goal, but listening to the commentators, and I'm watching on BT Sport from back home, the commentators, all of them were saying that Man United were absolutely terrible, abject, but they found a way to get a point. And Elanga's been brilliant. He's 19 years of age, a young Swedish kid, came off the bench and scored. And I think Man United they've really, really benefited this year from having subs come off the bench and having a positive effect. I think it's something like 10 or 11 goals they've had coming off the bench. And that's what you want as a manager, to be able to rely on substitutes to come in and have that positive effect. That's why you bring on a sub, to influence the game. And influence the game the substitutes have so often for Man United.
Well, and I wrote a quote of what the commentators said near the end of that game, right after United equalized. It's an ambush, but it's 1-1. That was the commentary there. All right, we're here on the pregame live. New York City FC, they've got Santos in Concacaf Champions League, second leg with City up 2-0. And time now to welcome in our cohort, Chris Tsakonas, who is going to offer some things to help us get ready for this. Chris, welcome again. How are you?
I'm doing good, Glenn, and just happy to be here. And I think to just get right in with Santos Tiguaples, a lot of what I said about them ahead of the first leg, defensive-minded side, really focus on the low blocks, like to spring on the counter, like to use the width of the pitch when they do. That stuff's still going to be the case in this second leg. The big difference here, and I was talking to our friend John Rojas about this a little earlier in the week, two of the three players who were having visa issues and weren't able to participate in the first leg, Javon East and Everando Rubio, are going to be able to play in this match. And I want to focus particularly on Javon East, who's in all likelihood going to start at forward today. Someone who's fast, someone who's strong, someone who can really hold the ball, but can also turn with it and try to beat his defender one-on-one. So that's going to be a big difference in terms of, whenever Santos does get out on the counter, he's going to be someone that, if New York City FC aren't careful, could pose a lot of problems.
Well, I mean, the combination of Chanot and Collins, they should be able to handle this, right, Matty? I mean, you'd be able to, right?
Yeah, look, those two can handle it. Those two are used to the physicality of international football. Both of them play international football, and they're used to the physicality of the MLS. I don't think they're going to see anything they haven't seen before. But look, it's good for Santos to have players back into the fray, because the side that we saw in the first leg was pretty negligible. It wasn't much of a game, as we said. I think they only had one shot on target, and for a home side to only have one shot on target, that's not particularly good, especially in a game of the magnitude of a first leg of a Champions League clash. But
Manchester United only had one shot on target today.
It's a bit different.
And they got a draw, so it's possible.
Madrid, but you're right.
So, Chris, the Everardo Rubio, he's at the back. So he's the second of the three that didn't play last week that's going to be in the lineup. But the third will not be there. Paradella, who's a pretty vital. Luis Paradella is an attacking midfielder, so missing him out of the attack. And when we introduce Jon Arnold in a few minutes, we're going to talk a little bit more about him being absent. But so with all these absences, Chris, Ronny Deila has to, or the absences and now the additions, Ronny Deila has to consider that, yes?
Yeah, I would say you'd have to consider that, just because, they're going to be more formidable. And, if you want to compare them to MLS sides, say they're not as good as, the typical side that New York City FC will face in MLS, that's true. But the fact remains, they're going to be different, particularly on the counter, compared to what we saw in leg one. And that's an adjustment that, New York City FC are going to have to make. The other point that I want to lead into with that is, and this is something Ronny Deila mentioned in his pre-match presser, they're going to have to, sort of force the issue a bit more, Santos, because if they don't, they're already down 2-0 in the first leg. They need goals. Sitting back for 90 minutes and, hoping they get a goal on the counter, that's not going to do it. They're going to have to, they're still going to, hunker down the low block, but they're going to have to be a bit more assertive in terms of getting the ball up the pitch, because if they don't, they're, the day you're down 2-0, you got to get goals.
Well, let's hear it in Dyla's words.
Again, it's going to be a tougher game now. Going to maybe be a more open game. They have to go forward to get through, so they have to attack us more, and then it's more space for us to hurt them in.
Yeah. So we lost Matty there for a moment. We'll get him back soon. We have the absent Matty, and remember, he's catering to his son right now, young Javi, who and this is what I love this part about live transmission. You never quite know. But Chris, based on that, to me, I was thinking all along during the week that Santi Rodriguez not playing, Thiago has the pace to maybe deal with what might happen on a counterattack for New York City FC. And indeed, Ronnie Dyla will start Thiago ahead of Eber. So that was the choice. It was either going to be Eber or Thiago, the Brazilian. And the guy with the pace wins out.
Yeah, and, that's going to be really I don't know about, I want to say great equalizer, but that's going to be the great factor for Santos, because in terms of technical ability, I don't think anyone can reasonably disagree with the fact that New York City FC, is better than Santos from a technical standpoint in just about every facet of the game. But athleticism is a great equalizer. It's the one thing that you have to account for in CONCACAF play. That's true at the club level, certainly true at the international level, as we see with the U.S. men's national team and the octagonal as that's ongoing. But I digress. But the point remains that you want to really emphasize that in these kinds of matches, and that seems to be what City has done.
All right, Chris. Final thoughts on this one. Second leg, New York City just they're not neophytes to this, but they're not veterans of this competition. And Ronnie Dyla and the team, they've said it from the start. They're setting themselves up to win this thing, and it's that juggling act between CCL and now the regular season getting underway this weekend.
Yeah, in terms of this specific matchup, look, New York City FC are in a very good position. If they play as well as they did in the first leg on the road in a harder environment, they're going to advance. They're already up 2-0 in the aggregate. Add an insurance goal, however this transpires, it wouldn't surprise me if it ends up being, 3 or 4-0 when all is said and done. So New York City FC just has to sort of stick to the game plan, do what they did in the first leg, maybe make a couple adjustments due to the personnel that they're facing. But look, it's going to be a long season for New York City FC. A lot of matches coming up. If they advance to the quarterfinals, you mentioned it, Glenn, the juggling act. And this is a side that, is not content with just winning MLS Cup. They want to go for Concacaf Champions League. They want to make a statement at the continental level, and they certainly feel they have the players to do it. So being able to juggle that and, handle a side like Santos in a midweek match before having to go and open up MLS regular season play this weekend, that's going to be critical. So, all that's to say, New York City FC should take care of business in this one. Just stick to the game plan, and I think they'll be fine.
All right, Chris Tsakonas, who will be with us throughout the season, opposition analysis here on these pregame lives. Chris, well done. And by the way, look out for Chris's vignettes during the week at Glenn Crooks, and also his post-game report, which you'll be able to get on Twitter at Glenn Crooks and also glenncrooksoccer.com. So well done, Chris, and we'll talk to you a little later.
All right. Thanks, Glenn.
You're quite welcome. All right. Time to take another step in the CONCACAF Champions League and CONCACAF in general, and welcome in our next guy. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen. He writes this thing, Getting CONCACAF, which is Jon Arnold. The first time I saw you publish, I was like, I'm sure everybody chuckled across the land because what does that mean to you, Getting CONCACAF? Why did you come up with that title?
I always say that if you get the joke, the newsletter is for you. I tell stories from around the region. a lot of them positive. I think getting CONCACAF we associate with this negativity that the referee did something, that you saw something that you'd never see in any other region. And those are the parts that make games like tonight and nights like tonight, where there are 4 matches in the region, fun. But also, I'm unironically a lover of the game in this region, of the local games. So in a way, getting CONCACAF, the newsletter that comes out a couple times a week, there's a premium edition that people can check out for $50 a year. It's my unironic love letter to the region, and I do that by telling the stories of the region, sometimes big picture, sometimes something very small that I hear about. But getting CONCACAF is, of course, yes, a bit of a knowing wink to some of the weird and wacky that we do see so often in the region.
Yeah, well, how about this is somewhat wacky, and I don't know if it's getting CONCACAF, but Montreal's match was postponed because of the fear that Olympic Stadium would collapse or the roof would somehow tear because of the ice and snow, and they had to postpone. That's pretty odd. That's pretty CONCACAF.
It's a weird one. I mean, and that's the thing, is that even though, that could happen anywhere, it feels like it only happens here, right? So, I mean, safety first, I'm glad. And It gives us sort of another piece of the healthy CONCACAF Champions League diet tonight. The remote's going to be getting the workout going between that game and the Rapids Comunicaciones that are kicking off at the same time. But yeah, it's these things just happen, right? And there are these moments, and even some of the things we're talking about with player availability, it's not good, and it's not necessarily CONCACAF's fault. These are players who are trying to get visas through the U.S. State Department, through their own embassies, whatever the case may be, usually going to the U.S. consulate in that country. But unfortunately, there are players who are missing their teams that couldn't get to the U.S. in this case in Cavalry. When we look at the Haitian team that unable to make it to Gillette Stadium to play the Revs. So these are the things that happen in the stories that I try and chronicle in the newsletter. And that, I think more and more people are talking about and realizing that, yes, MLS is a league that perhaps people are fans of. People watching your show are probably fans specifically of NYCFC, but so often the rest of the region really intertwines. There are players from Mexico, from Costa Rica, from Honduras, from the Caribbean who are coming to MLS. There are players from other international teams at the US or Mexico, or whoever people are fans of, will be big, players in these important qualification matches. So just trying to shine a light on the rest of the region. And certainly we see so many of these stories popping up all the time.
Well, here's another CONCACAF thing, perhaps. I don't know how often in this competition alone, where the 2 legs, both teams, neither one of them are playing in their home facility because they are not CONCACAF approved. So
I thought it was interesting that New York went to LA. It makes sense, I think, from a competitive spot where you look at the short travel for the opener. But I did kind of look through the record books, and, oftentimes the smaller teams in CONCACAF Champions League will have to go to the national stadium because either the stadium isn't up to the standard or it's too far from an airport to ask a visiting team to fly in and take a bus. But I do believe that this is the farthest ever that a team has stayed in their own country, because we have seen other teams, even like the Haitian team attempted to this year, going to a different country entirely. But this is the furthest the team has ever gone in their own country to play a home match. So it'll be fascinating to see exactly what the atmosphere is like. Unfortunately, I think players have gotten pretty used to playing in stadiums where there aren't too many fans after we had the COVID shutdown before the vaccines made things safer to get fans back in. But it certainly is an interesting wrinkle in this series that nobody's really playing a true home game.
Well, the unofficial word is that 300 New York City FC supporters are in attendance, and with the idea to go to this match and then stay and go to the Galaxy match, which is February 27th, just down the road. So that makes sense.
It's a good idea to get to that weather, Glenn. I heard you bragging about what a nice day it is up there in the Jersey, New York area. I'm in Texas, where usually we have it nice, but 20 degrees and freezing rain. So I might be visiting you guys soon.
I was going to bring that up because I saw you take a picture, a selfie. You were at training for the She Believes Cup, the U.S. women's national team playing Iceland tonight, 9:00 Eastern, or is it? Yeah, 9:00 Eastern kickoff. And I looked it up. It was 15 degrees at 1 p.m. Central. So the game is going on, right? I mean, this is the U.S. men playing Minnesota at 5 degrees at kickoff, and for a World Cup qualifier, this one is not of the same ilk, but still.
I'm not sure who it benefits. Iceland has to be used to those conditions, although they have such great indoor facilities that help their men's and their women's team take big steps forward. But I've already got my sweater. I'm not sure I'm actually going to be able to make it because the roads. The thing is, people often say, "Oh, well, you Texans need to toughen up. We all can deal with the cold. You guys need to take it." But the thing is, we don't have
Right.
the
Salt.
trucks
You
that
don't
put
have
the
the
sand
salt
and
and
the
all
salt
that.
and all this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know what to do. I don't know what to put on the roads. I'm from Texas, right? So hopefully the game goes off safely, and it's a good environment there as well.
All right, we're with Jon Arnold. He of Getting CONCACAF, the newsletter, which you should subscribe to. $50 a year. Come on, everybody. And I do want to ask you about this guy, Luis Paradella, who is not able to make the trip and play for Santos tonight, attacking midfielder. And I thought, I can't, it was on your Twitter. I don't know if you wrote it or somebody else did and you followed it up, but the discussion point was how it was unfortunate for him individually because he was trying to maybe show his wares and find a spot in MLS.
He's had some success in USL in Reno before going to Costa Rica, and he's the best player on the team for Santos. It's not a direct comparison, but if New York City FC suddenly didn't have Castellanos, I think it's a similar situation where suddenly there goes your best attacking weapon. Sure, you have some other players. In this case, two of those players weren't able to play in the first leg because of some very odd Costa Rican work situations that I know you guys covered on the show before. But Paradella is a guy, Cuban international. He's done really well with Santos, and I do thought this is a showcase for me. I was able to talk to him last week. It was in the newsletter, part of our conversation, and he's extremely disappointed. The first leg he misses because of this Costa Rican intricacy, I guess you'd call it, this sort of expose that appeared in the local press about players who are playing without their work permits. So now no foreign players who aren't already work permit in hand can play until their appointments, which for Paradella and I think some of the other Santos guys is all the way in March. And so Javon
we've
Easton,
heard a date, March 23rd, and it's affecting 19 or 20 players. It's not just this team, right?
It's everyone. So Prisa had some guys that were missing from their CCL match that might be able to play in the away leg and the domestic league as well. But Paradella specifically, since partly it seems like since he's Cuban, is not able to get the travel. I believe Comunicaciones also has a Cuban player who wasn't able to get into the States for their game against the Rapids. So it's a shame that we're talking about these document issues. Obviously, it's a bigger picture than just soccer, but you have to think that, it is a bummer for a guy like Paradella, even though scouting has advanced so much in our era, even though MLS teams are doing so well, looking at leagues like Costa Rica, like other CONCACAF leagues, it's still a chance for him to show against the MLS Cup champions what he could do. So unfortunately, he doesn't get that. I do think, as Chris mentioned earlier on the show, Santos should improve. Javon East is a big piece as well. He'll play tonight. He's in the starting lineup. The Mexican center back as well, Rubio, comes in. I think both their attack and their defense will be improved. But this is a team that isn't in great domestic form either. It's a game that New York City FC has to win. They did what they needed to do in the first leg. They need to take care of business tonight, move on, and start thinking about that dream of maybe winning the final.
And they play the winner, New York City, if they are fortunate enough to advance. And then a lot of the city supporters and the staff and everybody involved is going to be watching the next match, Colorado Comunicaciones. So what are your feelings going into that second leg, and how would you scout that one?
I think, again, we sort of have to keep repeating that the documentation themes have become an issue. Some of the Guatemalan guys got the first vaccine available in Guatemala, which was the Sputnik vaccine, which hasn't been recognized by U.S. health officials. So some guys had trouble getting in. Again, a Cuban player who was key in the first leg, not able to get in. So it's not a full-strength Comunicaciones. It's going to be, I think, a pretty difficult environment in Colorado. With all respect to the very faithful fans that they have, not a place that's known for a sellout crowd necessarily, but I think the weather will be pretty unforgiving for players who are used to playing in the Guatemalan climate. It's supposed to be cold. I think it's going to be, a tough night. Comunicaciones impressed me, honestly, in the first leg. I thought this series might look a little bit more like what we're seeing in the New York City FC series, where they took the first leg on the road. I like their chances in the second leg. The Rapids have work to do. I still think they'll do it. I think they'll take care of that work. I think the Robin Fraser, what he's done with the team, they were kind of somewhat similar to NYCFC, flew under the radar a bit. They didn't make the same run to the final that NYCFC did, obviously didn't lift the trophy, but I think the Rapids were playing good soccer, had some good players, and have to be the favorite for this series, even though they do have to take care of business tonight in the home leg. It's something where I would be very surprised to see Comunicaciones hold. I think they're going to come out in defensive posture. I think they know exactly what they have and what they have to do. So it'll be up to Colorado to do something special to break through. But I do think they have the players, the pieces to do that, the weapons to break through. And, you'd expect the Rapids to make it.
Comunicaciones up 1-0 on aggregate, but it's Dick's Sporting Goods Park for that match. Montreal will play host to Santos Laguna. And it's Pumas at home against the Prisa. That's 2-2 on aggregate. All tonight. That last game I said is at 10:30. So you got to flip back and forth between Colorado and Montreal, and then get yourself ready for Pumas Prisa. If you're a CCL Champions League fan, you get into it. And John, before I let you go, are you covering FC Dallas on the weekend?
I am. I'll be there working with the Striker Texas, a media outlet I helped launch last year, covering soccer in Texas the way that soccer gets covered in a lot of other countries, where you see full newspapers full of entirely soccer news. That's kind of what we're trying to achieve there. So we'll be doing FC Dallas, an interesting team, an interesting season. They had a fun game against NYCFC last year at Red Bull Arena that I was actually able to attend and cover. That was an interesting one, but you saw how much better in the end NYCFC was. A lot of big signings for FC Dallas this year. Alan Velasco getting his visa across the line. He'll be here tomorrow. Paul Arriola, U.S. national team player. It's definitely an era of ambition that we've never seen from FC Dallas before. So excited to see that opener against Toronto FC and see what they do.
Yeah, Toronto FC, the opponent. They have dropped 18 players from their first team that played at one time or another from a season ago. They've got the new coach, Bob Bradley. So a lot going on there as well. So you've got two teams that are kind of getting into new eras.
A lot of moving pieces, and I think that's the beauty of this start of the season. Listen, I'm not sure if you'd pick NYCFC as the MLS Cup champion last year at this time, but at the same time, they had a chance, and then they did it. So I think hope always springs eternal. Everyone can think, even FC Cincinnati fans, even Charlotte FC fans can think, hey, maybe this is going to be our year. FC Dallas fans can get hope with the new players, Toronto FC fans with the rebuild, with Bob at the helm. Why not? Why not dream? It costs nothing to dream, at least for this next couple weeks. You can think my team's going to win it all and be in the Concacaf Champions League next year.
Well, the dream of New York City is to win the first ever Concacaf Champions League title by an MLS side. Toronto came close, very close, agonizingly losing in penalties to, was it Chivas in 2018?
Yeah.
So we'll see if could it be City? Could it be Montreal? Could it be Colorado? Could it be Seattle? They play tomorrow night, 10:45 Eastern. That one's tied 0-0 to Motagua on aggregate. So, John, thank you so much. And I'm hoping we could do this again. You are the man to talk about all things CONCACAF. And I wish you all the best with your newsletter and your coverage down there in Dallas. And thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, we'll look forward to chatting in the future rounds. Glenn, take care.
Okay, thanks, John. John Arnold, he of Getting CONCACAF. Well, that'll do it for us. And New York City FC kicking off shortly in about 20 minutes or so. It's on FS2 tonight. FS2 and FS1 covering CONCACAF Champions League oh so well. No radio coverage tonight, but we will be back on the air for the season opener on the New York City FC network against the LA Galaxy. That's coming up Sunday, February 27th, and that's this Sunday. So we'll give you more details as we proceed. That's a 5 p.m. Eastern kickoff, or a few minutes after 5 p.m. So we'll have all those things. Follow me at Glenn Crooks, And enjoy the game tonight, everybody. Happy to be with you. Thanks for being on with us. Thanks for Chris Tsakonas, Matty Lawrence, and also Jon Arnold. I'm Glenn Crooks. Good night, everybody.